Now, once you have a definite strategy, or at least a goal to adopt SRE practices, there are a lot of approaches for causing SRE to be adopted across an organization. We're going to just talk about some of them, certainly not an exhaustive list. The one I like the best, of course, because I'm a consultant, a little bit biased there, is a consulting approach where you hire in, or you at least identify a consultant, somebody that has successfully implemented SRE practice transformations before. Often that's a third-party consultant that's hired in as a as an objective participant and transformative leader that's knowledgeable in SRE practices. It doesn't have to be. It could be somebody inside that has that experience and that position. But generally speaking, that's a great place to start. You can personally be the consultant. Now that you're taking these courses, you're already in a position to share knowledge and take a position as a consultant. I've certainly had to do that in my own career from time to time where nobody else was taking the reins, so I decided to, and I studied up on whatever the topic was, and became the kind of the consultant for the group. As it became bigger and bigger, in some cases I got promoted to grow with the size of the transformation. In other cases, they did hire in consulting teams that were already versed in that. But anyhow, that's not a bad way to get adoption going, to position as a thought leader, as a taking initiatives by example, show what the benefits are, doing your own research and so on. Then next, well, yeah, it's just one point here that is made on the slide. Ownership of SRE practices. Consultants are not usually the ones that are on call, not quite as hands-on as some of these other combinations of approaches. So you wouldn't normally expect the consultant to be supporting your product on call, but some of these others you would have people doing that are part of the transformation. And by the way, yeah, as it says here, this is not an exhaustive list, not necessarily in order either. My own experience is that's not a bad order though. Start with consulting, get some expertise brought in to understand SRE, and then some of these other approaches ultimately ending up with full SRE. So the second approach here is called embedded, where you get some SRE expert, again, whether they're internally homegrown experts or people you hire in, and you embed them in a service or delivery or application team or whatever you call it in your organization, so that you've got an SRE as part of the team. They co-work with other people on the team regarding SRE activities. They kind of be the local expert, kind of the local consultant within a team. They will try to encourage other developers, QA people, and other people on the team, ops people, to share responsibility, which is again one of the good practices of SRE and DevOps for that matter. They may indeed, embedded SREs take on call. Usually they would, and participate in understanding what customers are complaining about. That's a great way to learn. And in particular, participating in building solutions so that there aren't as many complaints, meeting SLOs. The next pattern is called platform, where an SRE isn't so much embedded as part of an application team, but rather they're as part of a SRE team that is more specialized in just SRE practices. So they may own, let's say, certain tools that are going to be shared across multiple parts of your organization, SRE automation, some things. I think you'll see in the Uber case, they have a platform team that has some specialties such as observability and so on. But there's no one standard approach, but that's a good way to, if you have a very limited number of SREs, but a large number of applications that you want to get going. Maybe you can't afford to embed SREs in every team, at least not yet. And so you may set up an SRE expert team that then develops processes and practices that can be then shared and utilized across multiple products and applications. The platform teams, for example, could be the guardians of environments, production environments, maybe they're required to participate in, decisions about that. Maybe they're providing on call. There's no one standard approach, but given the long list of SRE practices, there's a lot of ways that as a platform team, SRE, platform team members can take some actions that will help promote SRE adoption. In this approach where you've got a centralized team, it tends towards trying to get standards where you want everybody and all the other teams to use consistency. That's pretty normal because you want to get economies of scope and scale. These days, there is I think I mentioned it in the automation module 5. There's this trend towards what they call platform engineering, where the tools are made available under an engineered platform, kind of a portal that developers and others can use rather than having to log in and deal with the many, many tools. So this can be true for all the SRE practices as well. You might have a portal that's kind of SRE oriented, and that could be used by other members on all the different teams. That also would lend towards standardization as well. Usually the platform team members are not sharing on call with individual applications. They tend to be focused on the standardization of SRE practices, whereas they leave it up to the individual application teams to adopt it and then support their own products. Okay, the slice and dice approach is really nothing much more than a combination of these other approaches. These are, again, there is no hard standard, but you could use a combination of consulting, some embedded, some platform, the amount of on-call support can be shared and allocated according to whatever makes sense for a particular product. Let's say you have a platform that is super critical strategically for an organization, then maybe the platform itself has an on-call responsibility, where SREs in the platform team do support that on-call. Meanwhile, you may have some applications that are really critical to the organization, and you may, in particular cases that can afford it, if you like, have embedded SREs. All right, ultimately, you're trying to get to what's called full stack SRE, full SRE, where the entire organization is fully on board with SRE and all the different practices, at least the practices that they feel are important at all. This may take some time. I've been through a lot of different corporate level SRE and DevOps transformations. These are usually multi-year efforts. You don't just suddenly turn on SRE. It takes time to build up the resources, the capabilities, the skills, the tooling, the automation, and the culture. But ultimately, your goal is to become, a real full stack SRE capability where the entire organization sees reliability and all of the different permutations and meanings of reliability as a first-class citizen, just as much as all the other features for product and so on. Okay. This actually is something I relate to a lot. This phrase, true north vision. I actually blog a lot about this, and I've written books and everything on. And this is something I help my clients with because I think it's very, very important, whether it's SRE or anything else for that matter. I relate to it also because I happen to be a sailor, and if you look at this compass idea, it relates to this in sailing. True north being like the North Star. If you are a navigator on the ocean or even just a hiker, sometimes in the you often need to know what direction you're going. You're going to get lost in the woods or lost on the ocean, or maybe not make it to your destination. So you need to have a pretty clear idea of which way is north, if you like, and if you know where north is, you can kind of figure out what the other directions are because it's a compass. In the context of SRE adoption, this manifests itself as a vision statement. In my own practice, I spend a lot of time helping organizations develop a document, which I just call the strategic plan. Really, it's a vision statement that the executives sign off on, and it's written in a sufficiently and clearly that anybody in that organization can look at it, understand it, understand, why are we doing SRE? What are the general goals over time to accomplish? Generally speaking, what are the major tactics that are going to be used to get there, and maybe a timeline? So it's essentially a very high level statement of intent. If you don't have agreement and alignment, I would call it, around that vision at not only the executive level, but at the individual team and individual person level, things tend to go off track, and the best laid plans, can be interrupted, and ultimately it falls apart. So I cannot emphasize enough the importance of having a true north vision. I sent to you, I provided you my email address. You're welcome to send me a request if you want to see an example of some true north vision, or really SRE strategic plans that you're welcome to copy anytime. The general idea is you want the expectation to be realistic. There's nothing worse than reading some document from an executive that is all motherhood and apple pie, and darn well it's not going to happen. So it needs to be a thoughtful document, needs to be available to everybody, needs to be kept up to date, because it might, things might change over time. In this industry, things tend to change fairly frequently. And it should be realistic in the sense that, it shouldn't say, hey, our SRE plan is to have everything 100% reliable. As well, that that's not feasible. Instead, you want to have SLOs that can be managed to. And as an SRE, again, this is one of your primary responsibilities and skills, to help develop SLOs. Take charge of that. End-to-end automation. A lot of people might say, hey, we're just going to automate everything. Not feasible. There are so many things you could automate. A good SRE fully understands that, and definitely has opinions about what could and should be automated, where you're going to get the biggest bang for the buck, not just for you as an individual, but the organization as a whole. Similarly, all the automated recovery and mitigations and so on, there's no such thing as 100%. You really have to be thoughtful and identify, what are you really going to do? So these are some examples of what you would include in your True North document. What are you really trying to accomplish? More or less, by when? How are you going to get there? What are the tactics? It doesn't have to be, a full-blown course, although that's not a bad idea to offer training to everybody to supplement this. But each organization is going to have to define for themselves, what are you trying to get to by when, and make sure everybody on the team sees it and aligns to it.